Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? I finished reading the 5th Reacher book, and I've got this problem where I'm reviewing here, I'm reviewing on Upstream, I'm reviewing on Cracker Stack, and as a result, I don't know if what I've covered where. So especially because I had a couple of audio files that got corrupted, and I don't think I ever posted my reviews of those. So the point is, I don't remember if I've covered Reacher Book 4 on YouTube. So as a quick recap of the series, Book 1, The Killing Floor, was the most intense, and I think that's got a lot to do with it, because it was written first person, and it was also just kind of the most graphic as a result. Strangely enough, I do enjoy the switch to third person. It allows for more versatility. It allows for greater avenues of tension building, and the 4 books since then have been in third person. I think the second book, Die Trying, was my favorite so far. It was the most compelling, kind of a high octane, move on the fly type story, and it set the tone and it set the expectation for the subsequent volumes. Aside from the first person to third person switch, I feel like the next 4 books have been pretty different from the first one. Maybe just because you don't get so much of Reacher's inner monologue, with the third person. He comes off a lot more terse and quiet that way. But it also makes him more likable, I think, as you're observing him from the outside and watching him do his thing, do his process. The third book, why am I already blanking on the name? That's one where he's going up against the really, really compelling, crazy villain. And then the fourth one is called, I remember the UK name, The Visitor. That one, I feel like it was a very compelling serial killer hunt, and the plot was really, really good. It was just when you finally get to the mechanism of how the killer is killing the victims, it was kind of not necessarily a reach. It's like you're asking the audience to make a big jump from the mundane to the slightly unlikely or less than plausible. I don't want to spoil what it is, but the way that the killer was killing the serial killer victims was a bit of a reach. Okay, I guess I'll just use that word. It was a lot to ask of the reader to go along with that. It was a reach. It was a Reacher novel. Of course, he's making you be the Reacher, to reach for the plausibility. Anyway, book 5 is called Echo Burning. The name being, for Echo, which is a fictional, possibly, town in Texas. Maybe it's not fictional. Reacher starts off in Lubbock. He gets picked up by a lady looking for a hitchhiker, and she's trying to recruit somebody to kill her abusive husband. And Reacher, who finds himself in need of a ride, but definitely not wanting to get involved with a married woman who wants to hire a random hitman off the street, he's disinclined to go along with it. But it's the middle of the summer in Texas, in kind of southern Texas. It's freaking hot as all hell, and she's got an air-conditioned car, so he's kind of in the forced proximity thing, long enough to be persuaded to at least see her cause out. But he's like, no, I'm not going to kill your husband. I'm not going to, I'm not a hired gun. He's trying to tell her to get away from her, but there's difficult legal status with her marriage and her daughter and blah blah blah. Like, there are complicating factors. There were plenty of times where I thought, like, this lady is really dumb, and it was like dumb, almost borderlining on like it being a contrivance with how she just wouldn't do the smart thing and make a run for it. Supposedly, though, it was like, well, I don't have any money, I don't have the resources to do it. Out of the 5 that I've read so far, I think this one did the best job of yanking the reader back and forth in a constructive way. Okay, here's this problem that pops up, and here's this case as it presents itself, and then, okay, here comes this new character that completely 180s the case onto Reacher and paints it from the exact opposite direction using everything that he's been through firsthand and experienced. And he goes into military police mode and starts picking apart what he knows, comparing it to what he doesn't, and he does the very signature Reacher thing at this point of everybody around him tells him, like, here's what the evidence points to, it's a 99% certainty, and he's like, yeah, but what about the 1%? And then he finds this missing piece and puts the whole case together. Is the lady going to kill her husband? Did she kill her husband? The husband dies. Was it her? If so, what was the motive? Is the story that she told him true? Like, it's hard to keep a story like that straight as a writer, and Lee Child did it, I felt, really convincingly in this one. He's also kind of got a formula for these books, but there's a reassuring quality to the formula. It's not necessarily that the plots themselves are formulaic. There are some reliable beats to them. The beats are usually that he's just wandering around doing his thing, and then a problem falls out of the sky and lands in his lap, and he's reluctant to get involved at first, but then his unique set of skills end up being a match for the problem at hand, and so on and so forth. There's usually a hot chick involved in it, and he's going to hook up with her. Although in this one, there was a way to kind of change up, that particular part of the dynamic. I'm being intentionally vague here, as one does. It's almost like an episode of Phineas and Ferb. I'm saying this is, because I've got kids, where what's going to happen as far as story beats, because it's like 250 episodes of the same plot over and over again, but the way that they do it is what makes it so funny and entertaining. Well, with Reacher, it's not that hard and fast. It's not so defined where it's like, okay, and then this is going to happen because we're at the 80% mark, and this is going to happen, and he's going to say this catchphrase. Like, it's not so rigidly defined, but there is a formula to the story. Take Reacher, drop him in town A. He meets woman B who has problem C. There is antagonist male D, and extenuating circumstance E, which forces him to remain involved in the problem. And then F, his inspector instincts kick in, and he finds G, new element of the case that everybody else overlooked. And then H, plot twist. Like, you go through every one of those beats, but they don't always pop up in a way that you might expect. And this one played really hard with the whole, like, okay, and what won't you expect? And let's look at this from another angle and completely change the paradigm here. I liked that. And, I liked the way that he just kind of happens to stumble into the different pieces of the puzzle, and in the end, like, he takes the initiative and he puts it together and solves the problem. And Child keeps finding just these tiny new ways to stir the soup a little bit differently. What are we dealing with? We're going to be dealing with, we'll see, we're down in Texas, so there's going to be big Texas local patriotism. There's going to be some border crossing stuff. There's the legal system stuff. That stuff was the most fascinating. And assuming that everything he put into the story was true and accurate to how the Texas legal system actually works, that's a testament to the quality of his research and his skill as a storyteller working it into the story. Then there were illegals and farmers, and how the law treats them both, and what potential complications might arise, and dealing with corrupt law enforcement as they're covering border patrol crimes. And he's able to blow the lid off of all these seemingly disconnected things by the time it all comes together in the end. He's a Sherlock Holmes or an Hercule Poirot for the modern man. And I like it. Although he's quickly becoming less modern, because the character, according to the chronology of the story, was born in 1960. He was born, as Vietnam was, a thing. Or not, born, but, he was a little boy when that was going on. So, yeah. He did say in book 3 that he was 39, and that one would have come out in 1999. So yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I don't know if the books are necessarily like spaced a year apart, but he does put down that I was in the military for 13 years, or in this particular side of it for 13 years, and blah blah blah. I'm enjoying it, and not to the extent that I would want to grab every single one of them and read them all in quick succession, but I do have it as an object to just read the entire series this year. And I've got about 5 more books before I get to the one that season 2 of the show was based on. But I'll talk more about that as I get there. So this one was cool. I'll give it 4 stars, just because it did more of the things that the last couple of books didn't. That made the story just a little bit more complicated and intriguing, and not so readily solved by the reader. That was a problem that I had with book 3. Like, even though the villain was really terrifying and unique, and even cinematic in quality, we'll say, I figured out the twist right around the same time, maybe just a little bit before Reacher did on the page. I was like, no, this is what it's going to be. Just because it's the kind of twist that I've read in 2 other books, but I'm not going to say which ones, because if you're familiar with those, then you'll know the twist before you go and read this Reacher book. If you've got a question about what they are, let me know in the comments, and I'll slap a spoiler warning on there before I tell you what they are. Anyway, that's it for now. I've got a couple more to read this week, and I'm recording this on a Tuesday. It'll probably go live on Thursday. Thanks everybody for watching. Until next time, drive safe. See you out there.